Hello and welcome back to Scale Modelling Cafe. My name is Jamie and welcome to another fireside chat. This time all about accuracy. Now, on the one hand, it can be thought of objective and on the other hand, subjective. And I explain what I mean as we go along. What I'm going to do is I'm going to split this discussion into two parts. The first part, I'm going to chat about the overall shape of a subject. I think that's what most of us all think about when talking accuracy in model kits. And the other part is going to be dealing with something that I think is kind of more subjective. And you'll see what I mean when we get on to that. Okay, let's crack on. So the overall shape then. It's really extremely important to many modelers. It's also important to me to some extent, and I'll qualify that in that sometimes let's say there's two kits of equal quality and detail. One of them is easier to build, but has maybe one or two minor shape errors. The other one is more difficult to build and more difficult to get a nicer result, but is more accurate. Personally, I will go for the easy option pretty much every time. For me, I want to enjoy the hobby, and if I've got to spend a lot of time filling seams, dealing with stuff, getting frustrated with the build in certain parts, maybe something is over-engineered, as opposed to having an easier and for me therefore a more enjoyable process of putting the thing together before I get to paint, then I'll take that option pretty much every time. The accuracy things for me, and again this is all just me, is less important. I will correct some things if I see fit, frankly, and if it's an easy fix. If it isn't, and if it's too difficult, then I'll just build the kit and I'll enjoy it and I'll just accept that there's a few minor shape errors. For me, some kits though are so wrong, I just can't bring myself to build them. The accuracy issues are perhaps just too much, too obvious, and I'm just not going to go there, and I'd rather just not build it. I don't want to name and shame, but I'm going to. For me, the absolute worst kit of all time for this is the Hong Kong Models 1/32 scale Mosquito. I think it's the B Mark 6, not sure. So what? It's the bomber version with the glass nose, effectively. Excuse me, I just have a scratch. Oh dear. For me, the nose of that model is so wrong, it looks like a cartoon. For me, it just looks utterly ridiculous. There's other massive issues with it as well. For example, where the radiators are inboard of the engines on the leading edge, the top surface curves so far down, it's almost 60 degrees nose down, to use a pilot term. 60 degrees angle before it gets to the radiator. Whereas the real thing was, it's just the gentle curve of the leading edge. Those two issues just make it, to me, completely unbuildable. It's a very innovative model. It's got a one-piece rear fuselage, etc. and it's a real shame. And I like Hong Kong models. I think they do some nice stuff, but I just can't get past it. It just looks utterly ridiculous. That's kind of the only model specifically I'm going to pick out, other than I'm going to talk about Trumpeter and Hobby Boss now, and I'm going to mention one specific kit in that. Now, it's almost become a bit of a cliche to bash Trumpeter and their accuracy. Me, as a British guy and a British modeler and someone who likes British subjects, I get really frustrated when they bring out a British subject and they cock it up somewhere along the line. But actually, what I will say is they go together really well. The detail is normally really good. And in the vast majority of cases, I am happy to overlook the errors. Sometimes, though, there is an alternative kit, and the one that springs to mind is the Airfix Defiant. The Airfix Defiant is a really nice kit. I've built that model, albeit as a post-apocalyptic model, and that is, here we go. This flies against my Airfix video, but that's a really nice kit. You can easily sort out some of the panel lines. There are one or two panel lines missing from the rear fuselage, but they're easy enough to put in. I think maybe they just forgot to put it in, because it's unusual for Airfix to miss a detail like that. And it's a really nice model, and it's nicely detailed. Whereas the Trumpeter one, again, is really nicely detailed, and arguably will go together just slightly better than the Airfix one. But there are numerous shape issues. Now, normally, I won't even see those issues. And honestly, if Airfix hadn't brought out their Defiant and Trumpeter had, when I did my one, which I did as a post-apocalyptic one, and I just completely modified the whole thing, so accuracy didn't really care. Never sort of came into it, really. I would have happily bought that kit, built that kit. I would have happily built it as intended. I would have thrown a few little bits of aftermarket at it, as I always do, but the shape issues, really, I couldn't really see. So there's an example of a kit that, I'm aware there are issues because somebody else has pointed them out, but I would still be happy to buy it if there wasn't a better alternative. And obviously in that case there is. But in a lot of cases there aren't. For example, the Albacore, I really want to do that kit. Apparently there are some tricky fit issues that go along with it. It's a complicated model. So yeah, a biplane, but an enclosed cockpit, and it all joins at the top and stuff. And it's not the easiest kit, but it's the only one out there. And apparently there are shape issues with it. I don't know what they are. And I'm sure if I built it, I'd enjoy it, and I'd enjoy looking at it, and the accuracy issues wouldn't bother me because, like I say, I can't see them. Whereas the Hornet that they did, that would bother me. Apparently there's a few shape issues with the nacelles, which, yeah, okay, I can't see them, but they got the angle where the windscreen mounts completely wrong. And for me, the cockpit is the focal point of any model aeroplane, and it really is the focal point of that particular aeroplane because it's right at the front, and it's quite prominent because it's quite a skinny fuselage, and it's got this bulbous canopy on the top. And for me, that area really stands out. Now, I'm sure that's not going to bother I don't know, I'll pluck a number. I was going to say 99% of modelers, but who knows what the actual percentage figure is. And they'll buy it and they'll build it and they'll be happy with it. And maybe one day I will be able to overlook that, and I will. And if I want a 1/48 scale Hornet, I've got to buy it because there isn't anything else there really. And fixing that canopy issue might be a little bit tricky. Some models that are deemed to have slight inaccuracies, though, are fixable. One of those, for example, is the Special Hobby 1/32 scale Whirlwind. I love that aeroplane. I think it's awesome. There's a few issues with, I think, aerials and canopies and things. But that's fine. That's easily solved. Apparently, there's an issue with, I think it's got, is it got evaporate? I think it might have evaporation, cooling, blah, going on. And it's a bit too prominent and stuff. But again, that doesn't really bother me. And I'd be happy to build that. So it really is horses for courses. You know, we all know when sometimes a kit gets announced and then there's almost a race by some people to fill the forums and Facebook with pictures and photographs festooned with red lines, showing how clever these people are, that they've been the first to spot them, these errors. Now, in some respects, I can forgive those people. You know, this hobby is many things to many people, and it's some people's hobby to get that gouge out as soon as they can and be the first one to identify someone. It's almost like they're hovering, waiting for a kit to be released. They've got the red lines ready, and as soon as it's released, kapow, there we go. Now, I'm not going to criticise those people because I think they do a service to the community. And you can take that information for what you want. You can take it, thank you, correct the errors. You can take it, thank you, not correct the errors. You can not take it and push back and have a go at them, and criticise them for doing that, and being in the weeds and, you know, rivet counting, which I hate that phrase. But I think they do a good service, actually, and I wouldn't be aware of an awful lot of errors. And but at the end of the day, it's my choice if I want to buy it in the first place, and B, if I want to buy it and then fix those errors. It's entirely up to me, and it's entirely up to everybody. You know, you can fix it or not fix it. It's entirely up to you. And that's what it comes down to. The accuracy issues in certain kits, well, pretty much in every kit really, I'm sure, are objective. The shape's either right or it's wrong. But our approach is subjective. It's entirely up to us what we want to get out of that model. Do we want to spend the time fixing it, or are we happy leaving it? Or are we just happy doing one or two of the more easier, obvious things and leaving the rest? You know, whatever you enjoy. And no one is entitled to criticise anybody else's approach. Some people really enjoy slapping on really thick paint with a paintbrush, and they're very happy. So who are we to criticise? The other, right, that's kind of part one, I suppose, really. And I feel a bit bad in bashing, you know, singling out Trumpeter and Hong Kong models for that particular Mosquito. But it is an abomination, it's horrid. And I couldn't really resist bringing it up. The other aspect I'd like to address in this little chat is things like riveting on models. I'm a huge fan of riveting models. In fact, my latest one on the bench, the Armour Hobby Key 84, down here, beautiful kit, but I spent the time in riveting it, and I tend to rivet pretty much all my World War II models. The Jets not so much, but certainly World War II kits, which is, you know, partly why Eduard are my favourite manufacturer, because, you know, their stuff these days comes pre-riveted, which saves me a big job. So thank you, Eduard, if you're watching. I'm sure you're not, but there you go. I'd like to throw that out there anyway. Now, there's an argument to say, why do you put your rivets on your model? What, you know, why don't you even fill the panel lines? And I've seen that argument made. And the reason is, a model will look toy-like if it's got no surface detail at all. Now, for example, this little thing down here is 1/72 scale. So really, it should look the same from 1 foot away, the model, that is, than the real aeroplane when you're stood 72 feet away. And if you're stood 72 feet away from the aeroplane, what's that, about, I don't know, 25 metres, something like that, ballpark, which is kind of half a football pitch, you're going to struggle to see any rivets at all. You really are. But my argument against that, and my counter to that, is twofold. Firstly is, we often don't look at a model, we don't restrict ourselves from looking 12 inches away. We don't get a metal ruler and put it on our forehead and point it at the model and then look at it that way. We normally get in close and really study these things. So that's point one. You're not looking at it from 72, 48, 32 feet away. Effectively, you're looking at it much, much closer. The other argument is, without surface details such as recessed panel lines and I would argue rivets, the model's going to look bland. What you're doing is you are effectively creating noise in the image, and it's making the image, the model, look much more interesting. It's also a device for adding weathering, panel line washes and streaks and that kind of thing, and showing those rivets off. And obviously I'm a massive fan of weathering. It's my bag. That's what I get most enjoyment out of in this hobby, is the weathering. And I want to highlight those surface details because I think it makes the model look more interesting. Even though we are coding, we're kind of moving over, this is the kind of perfect accuracy line here, and we're kind of going beyond that and we're making it less accurate. But I think we're making a much more interesting model. But as I say, it's an individual approach. It's entirely up to the modeler if he wants to add rivets or not. I do. I prefer it. Like I say, it makes it look interesting, it makes it look busy, and it draws the eye in. And a model without panel lines that may be technically accurate, to me, is going to look bland. It really is. And I kind of exaggerate the weathering as well. A lot of times. I aim for realism as much as I can, but then we have to, as modelers, exaggerate some effects, otherwise they're just going to get lost. And again, the model's going to look bland. I'm not a fan of too much contrast with panel lines, for example. To me, they need to be visible but subtle and not in your face. I've done models where the panel lines have just been too much and I don't like the final result. I've done models where on reflection I think there's too much contrast and I've gone back in and I've fixed them. You still need some contrast there because you still want to see them. If you don't apply a wash, then it's going to reflect the light and it's going to look a bit odd because they're going to be sort of too light when actually you want them darker than the surrounding normally. So contrast and a tone that complements the camouflage or the surface finish, I think is very important. And I try really hard to get that balance right. Some people, though, it's a hill they're prepared to die on, and that's fair enough. We all have our own opinion, and I'm sure I'm going to get some opinions on this video where people think it's ridiculous and why am I doing rivets, and they're going to they would fill them in on an Eduard kit and blah blah blah, and that's fine. But what those people don't do is they don't thin the undercarriage doors to scale thickness. They don't thin their canopies to scale thickness. They don't add an ignition harness that's on a radial engine, for example, that's perfectly in scale, and you know, I could spend all night talking about the issues that they would have on their models. They've corrected one thing, but they've conveniently ignored everything else. But again, that's fine. If somebody wants to fill in their surface detail because they think it's going to look more accurate, and that's entirely up to them, and hopefully they're very pleased with their model. But I would guard against someone, you know, dying on the accuracy hill when it comes to surface detail and ignoring those things that I've mentioned. And, you know, and then doing maybe a shoddy paint job. Or there's, you know, wonky gear legs or a seam line showing or something like that. On this particular kit, this Armour Hobby Key 84, I have bought the Eduard photo etch set for it. And in that, I'm just picking one up here now. And I don't know why, because I very much doubt you'll be able to see it on camera. In it, you get photo etched undercarriage doors. Now, I nearly didn't use these because the plastic ones are really nice, but these come fully riveted, and their detail is really nice. And I just thought it'd be more in keeping with the model, because I have riveted this particular airframe. The other thing is, so that's the outer gear doors. Also, the inner gear doors you also get. But what you have to do is slice off the mounting from the kit doors, because it's one piece, to attach the photo etch parts, which I did very, very carefully. Now, I can imagine a lot of people who are going to buy that particular Eduard photo etch set are going to leave those on the fret because it's too much hassle. And again, absolutely fair enough in my view. I never use every single part from a photo etch set. So there we go. What I also have done on this model, I keep picking it up, don't I? I should lay it down because I've not long sprayed this gloss black, but it is dry to the touch. Is I drilled out the on the upper cowling for the machine guns. They were moulded solid, so I've drilled those out and I've put a little bit of Albion Alloys tubing in there. Again, because I want the finesse of detail. I want to make it as accurate as I can. And there we go. So essentially, that is the two aspects of accuracy, in my opinion. First of all, the shape accuracy, and you know, the Red Line Brigade and things like that. And it's something that people get really, really heated about, and differing opinions. Please don't get heated in the comments below. But it'd be great to hear your views on that. Where do you stand? Do you try and correct every single tiny little shape error to the nth degree, or are you like me? Are you happy to leave pretty much all of them in there for the sake of an easier life? And then it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on the other aspect of it, of paddle lines, riveting, so the surface detail, undercarriage legs, thickness of canopies, that kind of thing. You know, are you someone who always tries to go for the vac form canopy because it's more scale thickness? No, for me, definitely not. I really shy away from them. I have used them, and I will if required, but you know, I just normally use the kit one. The Armour Hobby Hurricane, which actually's got quite thick canopy, I actually sanded that down on the outside, and I cracked the first one, but you know, managed to. I had two kits, so I did one closed canopy and one open. Both of them I sanded down. So yeah, that's it really. That's my thoughts on accuracy and those two aspects, and it'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts, and hear your thoughts on accuracy of finishes as well, and weathering and things like that. The last thing I mention is my favourite manufacturer, Eduard, and I think they're, I was going to say famous, but but maybe it's infamous for once or twice announcing a new toolkit with great fanfare. Someone points out an accuracy issue, but they double down and they get really defensive. So the first one was when they did their 30-second scale BF109E, the E4, and the canopy was, they misinterpreted the 3D plans, and the canopy was way too narrow. And they were quite aggressive in that, no, we are definitely right, and they were very clearly wrong. But fair play to them, they eventually acknowledged their error and they retooled the kit and redesigned it. And I don't know whether they're kind of a little bit cursed, I guess, with 109s, because a similar thing happened with the 48 scale G6, the ME 109 G6, where they'd got the dimensions all wrong, the wingspan and I really don't know what happened there. And again, they doubled down. No, we are correct. Everyone else has got it wrong, and then they had to admit. And again, fair play, at great expense, they retooled that kit, and now we have a fabulous, beautiful collection of 109s, which they're about to add to with the K4, which I'm very excited about, and the G12 and G14, which I'm less enthusiastic about. But yeah, kudos to them. I don't know anyone else who kind of is so vitriolic in their defence, and then has to have the largest slice of humble pie any manufacturer ends up having to eat because they were so staunch in their defence that they were right. Anyway, it provides good entertainment. Anyway, right, there we go. I think I'll wrap it up there. Yeah, I've enjoyed this. It would be really interesting to hear your thoughts. Where do you fall on the line, on the spectrum of accuracy, people? Yeah, it'll be interesting. Almost a bit of a straw poll. I wonder if I can put a poll up. Actually, I might have a look. So check out the description. There may be a poll in there. If they do, I don't know if they do them on Facebook, on YouTube. If not, just put it in the comments, and maybe I'll tot it up in a week's time when the comments are starting to dry up, and we'll have a look. Right, there we go. It's times are marching now. I'm going to get this edited and uploaded, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.